The galaxy had known peace for 3,000 years. The Collective, a union of 47 species, had built an empire spanning 1,000,000 stars. They had conquered disease, mastered the fabric of space itself, and believed themselves beyond the reach of true danger. They were wrong. The Hollow came without warning. No one knew where they originated. Some believed they crawled from the spaces between dimensions. Others thought they were weapons left behind by a civilization so old that even their ruins had turned to dust. It did not matter what they were. What mattered was what they did. They consumed everything, not just flesh, not just metal. They consumed existence itself. Where they passed, reality became thin. Memories faded. Hope died. The very will to survive drained from living creatures, like water from a cracked vessel. The first world to fall was Kethran Prime, home to the Kethrani, a species known for their brilliant minds and unshakable courage. Within 3 days, every Kethrani had simply stopped. They sat down wherever they were and waited to be unmade. Their ships drifted empty in orbit. Their cities fell silent. Then they were gone, and the world itself began to fade, becoming a gray smear in space where once a beautiful blue planet had hung. World after world fell the same way. The Hollow did not need to fight. They simply approached, and beings lost the will to resist. The bravest warriors dropped their weapons. The most determined leaders abandoned their posts. Scientists stopped seeking solutions. Everyone ran, and those who could not run simply gave up. The Collective's leadership met aboard the Grand Assembly Station, a structure the size of a small moon that orbited a dying star. Representatives from every surviving species gathered in the Great Hall, their faces marked by the same terrible despair that had claimed so many already. "We cannot fight them," said the Verthai ambassador, his scales dull with fear. "Our weapons pass through them. Our shields mean nothing. When they come close, our crews abandon their stations. We have lost 400 ships without firing a single shot. Then we must flee," suggested the Malari delegate, her wings folded tight against her body. "We must find the edge of the galaxy and hide there." "They will follow," another voice cut in. "They always follow. They can sense life across impossible distances. There is nowhere in this universe where we can hide." The debate continued for hours, but it was meaningless. Everyone knew the truth. The Collective was finished. The greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known would be erased from existence, and there was nothing anyone could do. Then Ambassador Cirith, the human representative, stood up from her seat. The humans were strange newcomers to the Collective. They had only been members for 200 years, barely a heartbeat in galactic terms. They were weak, short-lived, and primitive compared to other species. Their technology was borrowed. Their military was small. Most species barely remembered they existed. "We will fight them," Cirith said. The hall fell silent. Then laughter erupted from several delegations. The Verthai ambassador made a sound of contempt. Your species cannot even live beyond a single century. Your bodies break at the slightest damage. What could you possibly do against the Hollow?" Cirith did not smile. Her face remained calm and cold. "We will fight them," she repeated. "We will fight them because we are the only ones who can." She turned and left the hall without waiting for a response. 3 days later, a human fleet of 200 ships arrived at the edge of hollow-claimed space. It was a tiny force compared to the armadas the Collective had sent to their doom. The other species watched through long-range sensors, expecting to witness another quick defeat. The Hollow came, as they always did. A wave of darkness swept toward the human ships, and the familiar pattern began. Sensors detected the same energy signature that had preceded every other collapse. The Hollow were projecting their ore of despair, the weapon that had broken every species before. But the human ships did not stop. They did not drift. They kept coming. Aboard the flagship, Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge and watched the approaching darkness. Around her, her crew worked their stations with steady hands. Some were sweating. Some had tears running down their cheeks. But none of them ran. None of them surrendered. "They're trying to break us," her tactical officer reported. "Despair projections at maximum." According to captured data, this is the point where other species lose all will to resist. Elena nodded. She could feel it. A cold weight pressing against her mind, whispering that nothing mattered, that resistance was futile, that she should simply close her eyes and let go. She had felt worse. "All ships," she said into the fleet-wide channel. "You know what we're carrying. You know why we're here. Hold the line." The human ships opened fire. The Hollow had never been attacked before. They had never needed to defend themselves. For the first time in their existence, they faced weapons that kept firing, guided by hands that refused to shake, aimed by minds that refused to break. The watching alien delegations could not understand what they were seeing. How were the humans still fighting? How were they resisting the despair that had crushed every other species in the galaxy? Ambassador Sirith stood in the observation deck of a distant station, watching the battle unfold on a massive screen. Beside her, the Verthai ambassador stared in disbelief. "How?" he whispered. "How are they doing this?" Sirith turned to look at him. Her eyes were old, far older than her relatively young face suggested. "Do you know what humans do to each other?" she asked. The Vorthai did not answer. "We murder," Sirith said. "We torture. We wage wars that last for decades over differences so small that other species cannot even perceive them. We watch our loved ones die slowly from diseases we cannot cure. We bury our children. We starve. We suffer. We experience horrors that would drive most species to extinction within a generation." She looked back at the screen, where human ships were pressing forward into the Hollow's formation. "Your species lives for 5,000 years, Sirith continued. "The Malari live for 3,000. The Kethrani live for 8,000. You have time. You have peace. Death is a distant thing, a concept you can ignore for centuries. But humans live for less than 100 years. Every single day, we are aware that we are dying. Every moment of our existence is shadowed by the knowledge that it will end." The Verthia scale shifted to a pale shade. "That sounds terrible." "It is," Sirith agreed. "But it makes us immune to what the Hollow do. They project despair. They make beings feel the hopelessness of existence, the meaninglessness of struggle, the inevitability of ending. But humans already know all of that. We are born knowing it. We grow up with death sitting on our shoulder, whispering in our ear every single day." On the screen, a human cruiser rammed directly into a Hollow concentration, its engines overloading as it plunged into the heart of the enemy. The explosion tore a hole in the Hollow formation that other ships immediately exploited. "The Hollow cannot break us with despair," Sirith said, "because we have already made peace with despair. We carry it with us always. We build our lives on top of it. We love knowing that love will end. We create knowing that our creations will crumble. We hope while knowing that hope is often foolish. That is what makes us human." The battle raged for 7 hours. The human fleet took heavy losses. Nearly half their ships were destroyed, but they did not retreat. They did not surrender. And slowly, impossibly, they pushed the Hollow back. Commander Vasquez led the final assault personally. Her ship was damaged, bleeding atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches. Half her crew was dead. But she stood on her bridge and gave orders in a voice that never wavered. "Target their core structure," she commanded. "Everything we have, now." The remaining human ships concentrated their fire on the center of the Hollow formation. For a long moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the Hollow began to scatter. For the first time, they were fleeing. They fled because they had encountered something they had never experienced before. They had met beings who could look directly at the void of existence and refuse to look away. They had met beings who danced with death every day of their short lives, and somehow found reasons to keep dancing. The collective's leadership watched in stunned silence as the hollow retreated, driven back by a species they had dismissed as primitive and weak. In the aftermath, Commander Vasquez addressed the Grand Assembly. She was battered, exhausted, and her uniform was stained with the blood of friends she had lost. But she stood straight and spoke clearly. "The hollow feed on despair," she said. "They break you by making you feel what we feel every day. The difference is that we have learned to live with it. We have turned our curse into our greatest strength." She looked around the hall at the alien faces watching her. "You asked us how we did it. The answer is simple. We are the species that knows death intimately. We are not afraid of ending because we have never forgotten that we are ending. Every moment of joy we experience is precious because we know it is temporary. Every act of courage matters because we know we have so little time to be brave." She paused and let her words sink in. "The hollow cannot take from us what we have already accepted. They cannot threaten us with oblivion when we have built our entire civilization on the foundation of oblivion. They cannot make us despair when despair is the sea we have learned to swim in since the first human looked up at the stars and wondered what would happen when the fire went out." The Thai ambassador rose from his seat. His scales had returned to their normal color, but his eyes were different now. There was something new in them, respect, perhaps. Or maybe something closer to awe. "What do you need from us?" he asked. Vasquez allowed herself a small smile. "Ships, weapons, soldiers if you can find any who are willing. We're going to take back every world the Hollow have claimed. And then we're going to find where they came from and make sure they never threaten anyone again." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "You call us weak because we die easily. You called us primitive because our lives are short. But perhaps you misunderstood. We are not weak despite our mortality. We are strong because of it. Death made us who we are. And death is exactly what we're going to bring to the Hollow." She walked out, and behind her, the galaxy began to hope again. Not because the threat was gone, but because they had finally found someone willing to stand against it. Someone who had been staring into the abyss their entire existence and had somehow learned to stare back. The humans called it courage. The aliens called it impossible. But whatever name it carried, it was the only weapon that mattered against an enemy that fed on fear. And humanity had plenty of it to spare.